Hey, everybody. How's it going? How are you doing today? We're going to open up on a little tutorial. How's it going, everybody? It is April 1st, but there's no clowning around here. We're deadly serious, except for one little bit of business. Jeff, Dave, whatever Dan told you, it's completely fabricated. So sorry, we were pulling your leg up until this point. For those of you guys, I'm sorry, that's an inside joke, but sorry, Jeff, you were sweating. I love you, Jeff. Hey guys, how are you? This is issue three of the warm-up. And man, it's getting to the point where I need a haircut so bad. But listen, I hope you guys are holding up. I hope everybody's healthy and safe and happy and hunkered down. Kind of like me, trying not to go a little batty. We have a great guest on today actually. So, by the way, someday we're going to actually do this show in the morning. It's just been a little tough right now. Our special guest, Mark Millar, he's out in the UK, in Glasgow. I believe he's in Glasgow. He's a world traveler, and so he's a little bit of a time difference, and this is when he was available. So we'll roll with it. And one of these days, we'll actually do the morning warm up in the morning. So just a little note to let you guys know. Woke up this morning, and it was one of those days where I have been incredibly clumsy. I mean, I have dropped everything. I have spilled everything. So even my morning or my afternoon cup of coffee, I've got a napkin here because I know I'm going to knock something over. So I apologize ahead of time if that happens. We're going to pick up a little bit. We're not doing a full art tutorial today, but I did start doodling on this Wolverine here. I started him on a layer. For those who are asking, I work in Sketchbook primarily. We'll talk more about the programs that I've used in the past or use presently, again, in another one of these issues. So I could work in layers in SketchUp. Unfortunately, I don't think the layers are showing up on my broadcast for whatever reason, but I've just made a new layer here to work over this pencil layer that I just started. I'm going to access, hang on, I got to move a couple of screens here. I'm going to access my tools here. You can see here's my pencil tool, and you can see right here, hopefully that's showing up. That's the size of my pencil, basically where it gets its thickest and thinnest. And I could start again working on this Wolverine now that I've sort of started to sketch in here. See, I'll start using that underdrawing. Some people do underdrawings like me. Some people use blue pencil, like my buddy Brian, who's also doing tutorials here. I tend to like the sort of layered version because it reminds me of how I used to work when I worked primarily in paper. But here's where I start to tighten up the drawing, tighten up the nose, tighten up the costume here. I feel bad doing this, knowing that Mark, I haven't spoken to Mark in a really long time, and he's backstage, technically backstage, waiting for me to get to him, chomping on the bit. Mark happens to be a shameless promoter of his own stuff. And this is killing him because he doesn't get to talk about Millar World and how wonderful he is and how great he is. And yeah, I know, I get it, Mark. I get it. You're the man. You're the man. If you can't tell, I love this guy dearly. I really do. I'm going to only take this to a certain point, and I promise you guys, we will finish it off at another day. We'll get into inking it, maybe coloring it, or maybe I'll have somebody come in and color it. But you can see what I'm doing here in terms of tightening it up, getting ready for it to be inked. Now, here, let's see here. Let me just finish the head here. Okay, you can see that it's starting to become something, right? But I'm using that underlying sketch. You build a drawing. It's like making a building, like making anything. You pre-plan it. You set yourself up to then, when you start doing the final project, it's something that you can, it makes the final that much better. Not necessarily quicker, but better. Okay, let's see here. What do we got? And I'll probably fudge with that a little bit more too, right? Now that we're in the basic layer here, or the main layer here, I'll probably look at this and later on and go, I don't know, maybe that forehead is jutting out a little bit too much. Let me grab my eraser. Here I go. Oh, Mark is suffering. I could feel him all the way from Glasgow. He's suffering. He's like, this is time away from me shilling my product. Okay, I'm not going to torture him too much more. I'm not going to torture you guys too much more either, because you're probably waiting for Mark to come on. So hang on, let's get to the beauty shot here. Where am I? Oh, there I am. Hey, how's it going? No more picture in picture. So hey guys, yeah. So let me just say, first of all, let me unmute him because he's on mute right now. He's literally, I mean, I'll tell you how awful a human being he is. I'm drawing, and when I have him on mute for you guys, he's not on mute for me. So he's literally like screaming in my ear. He's just saying the most profane things that we could not put on the air. Also, I will warn you, he is Scottish, and when we actually air this episode not live, we'll try to put some subtitles because I can barely understand him half the time. But without further ado, let me bring in my good buddy, and it's not an April Fool's joke. I actually have Mark Millar here. Let me unmute him. Hold on. Is he muted? He's muted. Mark, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, Joe. Very good.
Doing good, man?
In captivity, though.
Hold on a second, Mark. I just want to get all my my ducks in a row here. All right. Mark, man, thank you so much. It's been a long time since you and I have really sat down and chatted. You know, we travel in different circles now, man. You know, I mean, you're a rarefied air up there. You know, you're a big time movie and TV guy and a mogul. I mean, you live in this like Bruce Wayne like castle kind of thing. So, by the way, what time is it over there? Are you in Scotland?
Yeah, it's 6:16 over here right now. You know, 6 in the evening. You know.
Okay.
But I have to say, the glamour is all gone. It's weird. Like we're living in one room. You know, it's like being in jail, isn't it? You know. But do you know the strangest thing? I've realised that comic pros are handling this really well. Like quarantine is kind of what our life's been like this for decades, isn't it? You know, we've just been in one room basically our entire careers. So now everyone else is getting a little taste of freelance life. You know?
Right. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday when I was talking to CB. Mark, give me 1 second. I'm trying to find one of my windows disappeared here. Give me 1 second so that I can. You know what? Let me just kill something here. Let me quit out of a program here. Let me save this. This is the beauty of live, the absolute beauty of live. Let's see, Windows. There it is. Where did that disappear to? Okay. Sorry about that, Mark. You know, Mark, we've known each other for years and years. And I always loved the stories I would hear from you about growing up. You know, I found this little picture of little Mark Millar. Is that your family? Is that your entire family?
No, that was all my friends. That was all the kids in my street when I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. And I think I got into comics actually because my parents moved away from that street. I had the most blissful 4 and 5 years old. It was amazing. We were out playing every day and everything. And then when I was 6, my parents moved to a street that had no kids. You know, so I didn't see those kids again until I was like 11. I was allowed to go back and play. So I had 5 years where I just had comics to read. So that's my secret origin, I think.
I was wondering if it was your family, because every time I talk to you, you mention a brother, but it's always a different brother. It's like you have 50 brothers or something, right? How big a family do you come from?
Do you know, my mum was from a family of 12, and she had 6 kids, and I was the youngest out of 6. And, you know, I've got about 140.
So basically, your mom was from a family of 12, and she had 6, so she was a slacker, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. People were like, you need to go to the doctor and see if you can have more kids, you know?
Right.
but we, you know, we're so close. I mean, my cousins, I've got, like I say, well over 100 cousins. Probably if you count second cousins, 140, 150. Yeah. And I see them all the time. Like I send them all Christmas cards and I have to buy them all gifts. And my brothers and their kids now, and even grandchildren, there's now 47 of us. You know, so if my immediate family get together, there's 47 of us by the time you add all our kids together.
So are you guys all in the same town or dispersed?
Yeah, like I grew up in a town outside of Glasgow in Scotland called Coatbridge. And it's 10 miles from Glasgow. And when I was about 30, I moved from there and I decided to move into the city. And it's only 20 minutes, right? It's about 9 miles. It's about 20 minutes in a car. And my sister was crying when I moved away, when I was packing up the car and everything. She was saying, we're never going to see you again. Right. And I was like, it's literally 15, 20 minutes in the car. It's fine, you know. And she worked in the city that I moved to. You know? So that's kind of how tight-knit we are, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I always found that really, really heartwarming when you talk about your family and how much love you guys all have for each other. You also posted this other photo here, which I think is pretty poignant right now. That's you and one of your brothers, and you're delivering. What are you delivering? Toilet paper here? What the hell's going on here, man?
Yeah, well, you know the way kids are sort of really respected now and looked after, and parents' lives revolve around the children and everything. Like back then, we were just sent out to get stuff. Like people just had children to do errands.
Yeah.
So that was me, I think, coming back from the store with toilet roll and washing up liquid and things. And you can see from my face, that's my childhood encapsulated in one image there.
Yeah, it literally is just like, oh, And which brother is this?
So go back and get more stuff. I think they're saying go back and get more stuff.
Right, or you got the wrong stuff. Which brother is this? Which brother is this?
They all look quite alike, but I think that's my brother Jim. He's my oldest one. Like he's 22 years older than me. So I came along at the very end. I was one. You know when people have a baby in their 40s and they think, yeah, it's okay. There'll be no more kids. And then that last one shows up. I was kind of that last one. Like my brothers always said to me, that's why you're a little bit simple. My brothers used to say this to me when I was a kid. They said, it's because like mum was pretty old by this point. And all the good genes were gone, and it's we were left with you.
Well, she's at the point probably where she should, it's dangerous to have kids, right? She was older, I'm assuming, at that point, or? That's
what they all said to me. They said, look at the shape of your head. This explains the shape of your head. My brothers used to say this stuff to me all the time.
So you were the baby of the family?
Yeah. But the one upside of that is total indulgence, because by the time I was in high school or even primary school, they were working and they were bringing in a salary. So it meant they would take me places. So even though we were poor, I always get taken to the cinema and I always get taken to buy comics and things. So it was kind of like having lots of parents totally spoiling me, even though we were kind of poor. It was great.
Right. And I bet the kids in high school wouldn't mess with you either, right? Because you had big brothers, like really big brothers.
Well, I wanted that, but the thing is, my brothers were so old that somebody would have called the police, so like if I was 14 and like my 36-year-old brother was going to beat someone up, actually it's kind of creepy, So like, but luckily I had really great cousins, like I said, I've got loads and loads of cousins. So although I am a kind of weakling, like my cousins and my grandfather and everything were all boxers. They were really, really, really great fighters. So there was just the reputation of good fighters, which kind of, I just kind of capitalized on that.
Right. Well, you had the look.
Exactly.
Right. So, Mark, before we get into other stuff, I mean, because we're talking about family, we're talking about, where you grew up, your hometown and stuff. One of the things, in all seriousness, one of the things that always blows me away is that you're always doing stuff for the people in your hometown. Like I know you'll purchase an entire showing at a cinema and just invite people down and for free and stuff. And so I mean, for example, I these photos you posted. The sort of event that you did with the inflatable Spider-Man for the kids in your hometown. Tell us a little bit about that, because I mean, I think that's the most incredible stuff. Is that actually I'm going to take this picture down because it's covering your face. But I just think that aspect of giving back is really something. I say one of the reasons I love you so much. I mean, when we became friends, I had no idea that given the ability, these are some of the things you would do. But I think it's really cool. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I think it actually all came from a few years back. You're kind of caught up in your careers and you're busy and you've got deadlines and everything. You never really think of anything outside of your family and work, really, most of the time. And one of my nieces went to my old school and she said to me, this was maybe 8-9 years ago, and she said to me, oh, the school trips have been cancelled this year. And I was like, how come? And she said it was because they'd no money. The school, it was just after the crash, and the local authorities, like the councils, couldn't afford to send the kids on a school trip. And I remember that was a big part of my life, like once a year you would get to go to the zoo or a park or something. It was awesome, and it was a little bit different from school. It was kind of, you look forward to it. And I can remember every one I went on. So I was like, oh God, that's terrible. And then I said to my wife, maybe we should do something about that, because we've got some dough, and maybe we could send the kids on a school trip. And that kind of began the relationship, So then I went back to my old school and I started to see things, that could be improved, So I was like, wouldn't it be cool if all the kids got iPads or something like this, So just like incrementally, all these little things started to build up. And then when we sold the company Netflix a couple of years ago, we ended up with a lot more money than we expected, And you can become two people whenever something like that happens to you. You can become like some clown who sits on a beach all day, and only hangs out with celebrities or something, or you kind of stay where you belong, really, and all the people who matter to you, try and help a little bit, So it's actually just really nice, though, because I know so many of the people personally. Like, I grew up in a relatively small town, so if they're not my cousins, most of them are my cousins, they're at least my friends' parents or something, So we started running lots of events, so we'd put on like free Christmas dinners for all the pensioners in the town, that kind of thing, and everybody would show up in a big hall, and I would hire entertainment, or even volunteer entertainment would come, and they would sing for everybody, and it was just like great days, and it was kind of the stuff I remember a little bit growing up as well. So for me, it's hugely nostalgic, and it's all people I like, luckily nobody beat me up or anything like that in the town, so I've only got kind of good memories of living there. And, it's grown like crazy, so we want to start having movie premieres in my old school and stuff like that, so I've got a 10-year plan, and my idea is to try and, at the end of those 10 years, have the town being one of the most awesome places to live in Scotland.
Right. Nice. That's awesome, man. So let's backtrack a little bit. What got you into comics? What was your first your comic book experience? Was it at a shop? Was it at a convenience store? What got little Mark Millar hooked on comics and just, something? What is it that caused your imagination and your creativity to really go, boom, this is what I want to do?
Do you know, comics used to come into the UK really weirdly. They were brought over like sometimes years apart. So you would get like part 1 of a story, part 2 of a story, then you'd wait 3 years to get the conclusion. It was really weird. Like the distribution was really terrible back when I was a kid. So I can never quite remember exactly what my first one was, but I know my first DC comic was a Superman comic that had Clark Kent and Superman on the cover. And it was one of those symbolic things, where they have both characters. And I thought they were two different guys. And until I was about 7, I thought Clark Kent was one of Superman's friends. You like Jimmy Olsen or Lois Lane,
right? So the glasses work. The glasses work is what you're saying.
Yeah, it works now. So like once I was able to kind of read it, I was like, oh my God, Clark Kent is Superman. What? So that was my earliest kind of Superman DC, and my earliest Marvel was when I was 6. And what it was a book that came out a few years earlier in the US, which was The Death of Gwen Stacy. And I think you guys would have got it as Spider-Man number 123, something like that. The Goblin's Last Stand, it was called, And but in the UK, we got it 3 years later, and it was repackaged in black and white, and it was in a weird rectangular format, so you read it like widescreen. It was like an album, like an old album. You would open up and read it like this. So that was my first comic from Marvel. And I remember it had Spider-Man accidentally snapping his girlfriend's neck. Green Goblin turned out to be his best friend's dad, and Spider-Man sort of accidentally murders him. Then he comes home after being chased by the police, and Harry Osborn's on LSD. And I was like, I want more of this. Where did I get more of this? And that was the lifelong love affair began.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear here. I don't think they mentioned what Harry was on, but he was on something.
He was on something. Yeah.
Something, because the Comics Code would not have approved that. I remember you telling me a story when we were in one of those great Marvel Creative Summits, and Bendis was there, and Jeff Loeb was there, and Joe Straczynski was there, and it was a lot of that sort of early talent from my first few years as editor in chief, and we were charged with make the Avengers the #1 book.
Yeah.
Comic book in the world. Make it the #1 book on the list, on the Diamond list, and stuff like that. And we're scrambling to do all this stuff, and you very brilliantly said, I don't understand why you're not putting Wolverine and Spider-Man on the team. And I'm gonna out somebody. I'm gonna out Tom Brevoort, one of the absolute best editors in comics. You'll probably remember this, Mark. Tom was like really freaked out. Well, Spider-Man and Wolverine should not be on the Avengers. They're loners. And Wolverine's on the X-Men, and I remember saying they could be if we want them to. We just write them that way, and it became really, really heated. The next day, Tom came back in, and to his credit, this is what makes him a great editor. He came back and he said, I thought about it, and you're right. They should be on the Avengers. The Avengers should be, because you used the JLA analogy, right? Could you tell us a little bit, because I remember you telling a story about your first experience with the JLA and some of the DC books. Do you know the story I'm talking about?
being a cheap Scotsman, yeah, I remember this so clearly. And what it was the idea of, for the price of one comic, I could have a comic that had Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Aquaman all in one comic. That's saving me a fortune, you know, the way I looked at it as a kid. And I applied that logic. I just thought, you know, I've got an X-Man here, I've got Spider-Man, I've got the Avengers, all in one book, you know. And I remember saying that at the meeting, and I'll never forget Breivert going like this. No, he was like, but you're right. Next day, he came back in. You know, I also remember with Breivert. This is so funny. I think about this a lot. Right now, that must have been 15 years ago. Right, it was ages ago. And I always remember Brian, because we would always rip each other apart at these meetings for fun. You know, it was just like good fun, you know. And I remember Brian just making a really funny joke, and it was a little bit at Breivert's expense, but in a gentle way, you know. I mean, Breivert didn't take any offence. Breivert's cool, you know. But I remember the room laughing and Brian just immediately looking sad. And I was like, that's weird. And Brian had felt bad immediately about the joke. Yeah. And I remember being in the bar that night after dinner. We were all drinking in the bar, and Bendis was saying, oh, I feel bad about that Breivert joke, you know. And I was like, Breivert was laughing himself. It's fine, don't worry. And he was like, no, he says, feel bad about this. And he left, and he got his bag, and he left, and he went to his hotel. And next morning, I saw him at breakfast, and he said to me, I feel terrible about that joke with Breivert. And I was like, Brian, Breivert doesn't care. That was a great joke. And then I saw him, before the meeting of our summit next day, I saw him take Breivert aside, and I saw him really sincerely apologise to him. And Breivert was like, yeah, you're mind, you know. But Brian then was relieved again. It was okay. It was the most Brian Bendis thing in the world, wasn't it? He was so worried he'd upset Tom, but it was all cool once Tom was okay with it.
Yeah, it is so Brian. But those I mean, there were some incredible moments that I'll never forget at some of those summits. I mean, again, we don't have enough time to go into all of them, but I do remember that story. And I remember going, yeah, but I don't, you know, Spider-Man and Wolverine should be in that book, but I don't want to write it. You know, you didn't want to write it. So, but that was a really important moment, because, you know, we get so caught up in the continuity of it all, right? The canon of it all. Spider-Man would never be part of a team. Wolverine would never be part of this kind of a team. But you throw them in the mix, and consequentially, it became the #1 book. But you also had a little Avengers book, but we called it the Ultimates, right? I mean, getting any memories from back in the day, the days of the Ultimates, when it was the Wild West at Marvel. 2000, 2001.
It was such a fun time to be in, wasn't it? Because Marvel had just been in this terrible financial place, you know, just a couple of years before. And in a weird way, that's the most exciting time to come into a company, isn't it? You know, when almost nobody's watching, you know, they're kind of too worried about the finances, so the creative guys can go crazy. And we just did such a ball, didn't we? Like, I mean, any time we thought we'd gone too far, we'd always push each other into going that little bit further. But that's what made it so exciting. I think the closest comparison must have been what it must have felt like in Marvel in the early 60s, when the guys were inventing all this stuff as it was coming along. And we all sparked off each other. You know, everybody got on well, which was really good. And you know, we brought in the best artists like Brian Hitch. Who else could have drawn the Ultimates except Brian Hitch, you know? And we were so lucky having guys like Adam Kubert on X-Men and everything. It was just such a fun period to be working. I think if I'd been a couple of years earlier or a few years later, I wouldn't have quite connected in the same way. I was in the right place very luckily at the right time, I think, and having the support network of you guys and Bill before Dan as well. You know, it was a crazy time, but really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, you know the background story, right? Where I was still editor, I was still running Marvel Knights. I wasn't even a Marvel employee at the time. And Bill Jemis had come in as the new president of publisher. I forget what Bill's title was exactly, but he basically ran the publishing ship. We're starting to steer the publishing ship, and he came to me and said, "Look, I'm starting this line of comics where we're gonna start everything from scratch. Like, imagine if Stan Lee and Jack and all those guys were the age when they were creating the Marvel Universe today in 2000. How would they rethink? How would these characters be created? Do you have any talent that I'm not aware of?" So he was talking about X-Men at that time. So I brought Brian, and I showed him some of Brian's books, and he's like, "I love this guy, but he's not right for the X-Men, but it'd be perfect for a Spider-Man book." And then I brought him your stuff, and I was really a little afraid, because what I brought him was the Authority, and the Authority. I brought him the issues where there were the Marvel analogs. What was the name of the team that were the Marvel analogs?
I can't even remember. The Commandos or something. I can't remember.
Yes, I forget myself, but it was a very adult. It's an adult book, kids. Don't read this book. but it was an adult take. It was a very humorous take, dark humor, and I gave it to Bill saying, "What do you think?" And the next day he barged into my office. He said, "This is amazing," and then got you in, and it was X-Men and there was Ultimates and all those incredible conversations we had about what would these characters be like, what would Captain America be like, what would Nick Fury be like, and then getting Hitchin was the magic to it, right? And getting Bagley into Spider-Man, that was the magic to this whole thing. Was that alchemy that those combinations breed success, as I like to say. But it was a fun time, man. It really, really was a fun time. You guys made my stint as editor-in-chief incredibly easy because you knocked all those books out of the park. We had some misses too, but the misses were just as much fun, and you end up learning from them. But now here you are, Mark. So you've moved on from Marvel. You start doing your create your own stuff. You're now a big wig, big muckety muck over at Netflix. As I like to say, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit here because I like to say you're kind of like the James Bond of comics, right? Because every time I look, there's a new photo of Mark doing something extravagant. You're always hanging out with celebrities, Mark. Here you are at the pub. What's going on here, Mark? Seriously, what's going on here?
That is Flash Gordon himself. Flash Gordon. That's Sam Jones, who came to Glasgow. He's in my local pub in Glasgow, the one I drink in Glasgow. I got him out for the night. And I think it was maybe one of the most exciting nights of my life. I'm not just out with Flash Gordon. And I sent a text out to a couple of pals and said, "Hey, listen, Flash Gordon's coming out." It was like that scene in Ted. I was like, "I'm down to the pub with Flash Gordon if anybody wants to come along." And about 50 of my friends showed up. It just went like wildfire. And they all showed up with like the Queen album and everything, for him to sign it. And these guys aren't comic fans or anything. They were just like in awe that Flash Gordon was there. I went to a nightclub with him, and then about 2 a.m. or something, I was just standing waiting on a cab, and the two of us are standing eating cheese and chips, just drunk, waiting on the cab coming and all that. And I thought, this is the greatest moment of my life. It's amazing.
It's like you could have showed up with De Niro, and you probably wouldn't have had as many people at the pub.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I just thought when I saw him that night, I thought this is the perfect time for Ming to attack. Ming could just take him down now, while he's...
Yeah. So again, you're always posting photos like what's this photo with the flamingos? Where are you here?
That's me in a zoo in Spain. Just before lockdown, I said to my wife at the beginning of this year, we work too hard. We're always busy doing stuff and everything. We're going to go so many holidays this year. I'm going to take some time off. We're going to go lots of holidays. Right. And then a global pandemic, and we all got locked in our houses, But that was the first holiday that we got this year. And but we did. At least we got a little bit of sunshine. Scottish people don't see a lot of sunshine, so it was great. But that's me doing my gang sign beside some flamingos in the park.
Yeah, well, this is also why you could have been one of those people like lounging on the beach. But dude, I know. You sunburn with a full moon. There's just no way you're going to do it.
Even the light of you on this computer, I put something on.
Yeah, you put some sunscreen on there. But again, you're always going to extravagant parties. I always see you dressed nicely in these tuxes and stuff. This tux is, I don't know what's going on, Mark. This is Willy Wonka. What are you doing here?
Well, I'll tell you what happened there. That was last October. I got invited to a Halloween party. And I don't know about you, but if I hear that there's a Halloween party as soon as fancy dress, people are in costumes. And my wife said to me, "Listen, I'll get the kids." And I was doing something else, So I ran back to the house, got changed, and headed in. And I was the only person in fancy dress. I showed up at just basically a house party, dressed as Willy Wonka, and everybody else was just in regular clothes. But the thing is, my kids pointed out to me about a year ago that I look quite like 1970s Gene Wilder. And I can sort of see it. I've got the colouring and everything, Yeah. And I was reading Gene Wilder's autobiography, and my 6-year-old thought it was a book about me. And she was saying, "Dad, why are you in the car?" It's not that flattering, but I can sort of see it.
No, you're a perfect Willy Wonka. I could certainly see I could cast you in the new movie. So, all right, now this one I'm going to call fake photo here. This one you say you're at the North Pole. This looks like you're at a ski resort in like Colorado. This is not the North Pole.
No, we actually went to see Santa Claus at the North Pole, and I think it was last year. And I would say it's literally the best day of my life. It was absolutely amazing. What we did
hang on. Is Santa up there? Did you see Santa?
You get on a plane. Huskies are waiting for you, and reindeer and all this kind of stuff. You get taken to a lodge. and then you go up for an hour into the darkness, and you see Santa's house. You go in, 7-foot guy with the best Finnish accent you've ever heard in your life. You're in the Arctic Circle. You meet Santa, you get your present, and then he tells you to get lost, and you come back to Scotland. But it was only one day we were there, and it is the best thing. So my kids were like in absolute awe. That was a supernatural experience for them. They looked like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters. They were just like staring at him.
I mean, dude, I'm totally living wrong. I am not doing it right. There's something that I got to figure it out. Okay, so this is what was that?
You've got Canada you can go to. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I got Canada. So this one, this seems more like you, Mark. What's going on here with these?
What's that?
What are you milking here, Mark?
Oh, that's my cows. I actually have some cows.
How many?
I bought a farm, and and what I do is I spend a lot of time here, and I've always got my hand around another when I'm not writing a script. I keep myself busy.
Right. What are the cows' names, Mark? What are the names?
Oh, I don't name them because we might have to execute these guys. So you never name them.
I see. They're multi-purpose. All right, I didn't know we were going to go there.
Never name the cows.
Never name the cows. Never name any of your animals. So I got one last shot to share because I think this is my favorite one. People always wonder I know the key to your success. I know how you sort of have your pulse on the finger of the entertainment world because you people don't know you are actually a time traveler. What the hell, Mark? This looks exactly like you, except with better hair.
It's quite eerie, isn't it? It's quite eerie. No, that people think that's a fake Photoshop picture, but it's actually a nurse in the First World War in Australia. Right. From about 1917 or something. And my nephew was over in Australia, and he saw this at a big exhibition on the war. And he was like, "Uncle Mark, I need to take a photo and send it to you." And he took the picture and sent it, and I was like, "Oh my god," And I don't know, it's either the least attractive women of all time, I don't know, or he's pranking me, I don't know, but it seems to be real. And this woman was a nurse in the war. So then, of course, I spent 2 days looking for a picture of an old woman who looked like him. Naturally, that's how I spend the time.
Right. So Mark, let's talk a little bit. First of all, I want to tell people out there, if you have any questions for Mark, start pinging us, and we'll try to get to some depending time permitting here. I know Mark is on a schedule, so we'll have him for a little while. Mark, so tell us about what's going on right now. You got I can't think of anybody, comic book, movie, film, TV, anyone who works in any particular part of the entertainment business that has as much stuff either in production, ready to come out, being in development, whatever it may be, than you. I mean, you've got so much stuff, and I know, guys. Also, if you're asking questions, there's only so much that Mark can probably talk about because a lot of these things are lead sort of. They have a long lead, and it'll be tough for him to give you the answer, and it's always frustrating when you ask a question, you hear somebody say, "Sorry, I can't tell you." But Mark, tell us a little bit about what you got. There's a long list of stuff, from the Magic Order and American Jesus and all this sort of stuff. What's going on in the Millar world, Netflix world right now?
Well, it's crazy. When we sold the company, Lucy and I sold the company 2.5 years ago now. And basically 2 things didn't get sold that we kept separately, which was Kingsman and Kick-Ass. So they kind of exist outside of Netflix, and they just live their own life. And weirdly, I can't work on them now because I'm on staff. I'm an executive at Netflix now. I can't work on them. So they're kind of growing on their own somewhere now. And there's a new Kingsman movie coming out in September, God willing, And there's plans for a new Kick-Ass at some point as well, but I actually cannot be involved. I'll be a kind of silent producer on them, but not really doing anything, But over at Netflix, it's really exciting. I mean, I always say to people, this is what it must have been like in Hollywood in the 20s. When people are just making it up as they're going along and nobody's saying no. They're just like, let's try it. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's very much like Marvel in the early noughties, where there's no rules, like people are just trying stuff because it sounds kind of fun. And I've loved the experience. It's the first actual job I've ever had. I mean, I've been doing this since I was 19, and this is the first time I've ever actually earned a salary, kind of been on staff somewhere and, had a card, an expense account and things. It's amazing. I love it. I should have done this years ago. But but it's really fun. So what my job entails now is one half of it is creating content, Once we sold the company, I took a separate deal, like I say, to go on staff. So the content is maybe the sequels to the projects that we sold, or maybe generating new material in-house that don't start life as a comic. Like Magic Order I created as a television show, and then I turned it into a comic from there, and
right.
Prodigy was the same, and Sharky the Bounty Hunter. But everything prior to that was obviously comics becoming film. So one by one, they're all being made. The very first one out the gate is going to be Jupiter's Legacy. And that's a comic I did in 2012 with Frank Whiteley.
Yeah.
And because Frank's quite slow, it just finished recently, but it looks amazing, and the TV show just finished filming, looks absolutely phenomenal. And that, I'm not quite sure of what our date is yet, because the pandemic, obviously, it slightly changes things. We have to kind of probably revise closer to the time. But I've seen all 8 episodes. I've seen the first 8. There's still visual effects work to be done and everything. But my God, it looks so good. It looks amazing.
Cannot wait.
I know I should put it in the Marvel channel, but it does feel like an upgrade, just to say that, on everything that's been out there.
Well, Mark, just so you know, the fun part of this show for me is the fact that it's not, I'm not just only going to talk about Marvel, even though it's on Marvel channel. The only stipulation is, let's keep it clean. But I just want to give folks sort of a wide view of the beauty of comics and what comics can do in the genre, and how this medium can move into other medium. And I think you're a perfect example of a guy who started in comics, and you're still in comics. I know you continue dipping your toe in with this, I know you have contractual things with Netflix that you have to adhere to, but I know your passion for comics. So it's fun to talk about this. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead, keep going.
I know what you mean, though. I mean, I love it because there's something about the form of comics that I just found so addictive. I fell in love with it, like I say, the stuff I was talking about earlier, and I've never not been in love with it. I love the simplicity of just telling a story on paper with a pen, Like, it doesn't matter about budget. Now I have to think about budgets whenever we're talking about TVs or movies or anything, but, it costs as much to draw a guy's head as it costs to draw a million spaceships. It's really liberating doing comic books, isn't it? So I love all that. So the other stuff we're adapting, the next ones out the gate will be American Jesus, which we're filming down in Mexico, and it's going to be Spanish language, which is really cool because I can't speak a word of Spanish. And they send me the scripts, and I'm like, I have no idea what anyone's saying, but it looks good. I think it looks good.
Send it to me. I can translate it for you.
Yeah. And the next one after that is The Magic Order. And James Wan is directing that, which is so exciting. And a brilliant showrunner called Lindsay Beer. It's a big horror series based on, well, not based on, from something we did a while back that's now also a comic book. And then we're also doing Sharky the Bounty Hunter, Space Bandits, and Prodigy as well. So they'll all be, shot at some point this year, is the plan. And then next year, all that stuff starts rolling out. Oh, and Huck as well. And we're doing an anime series as well.
I got to tell you, Huck is one of my favorite comics that you put out in a while. I think I emailed you the minute I read it. I'm like, Mark, I love everything you do. This one just sort of hit me right here. I loved it so much. I thought it was.
It's one of the few things I've let my kids read as well, because I realise what I do is so objectionable that I could never let children read it most of the time, But Huck was the one thing I felt safely I could hand over. And even then, there was still a couple of things I was a little worried about when she was reading them, But but no, I'm glad you like it. The guy who's directing that is terrific. He did a movie called Hidden Figures, a Kevin Costner movie a couple of years back. It's called Ted Melfi, and he's a really great director, and he's working on that very soon, which is great.
Awesome. All right, so listen, we got a few fan questions over here, so I'm going to put you right on the spot. You're going to Here we go. All right, so I can. You can't see this, but I'm dropping the questions on screen, and I'll read them off to you. So Jiggy Cruz, if you were to write for Marvel again, wink, 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 which character would you like to write?
Oh, do you know, I actually got to write most of the ones that I loved. I love Captain America, Spider-Man. The Avengers was probably my favourite. Fantastic Four was great fun. But I think Wolverine is a character I've had some good luck with. Man Logan was a good one. And I did a thing called Enemy of the State before that with John Romita Jr. That's where Johnny and I fell in love, and we did Kick-Ass later, But Wolverine's been good to me, and I think I would come back and do a Wolverine story at Marvel. Say hi to Jiggy as well. Jiggy and his cousin Jonty Cruz. I met them when I was in Manila in the Philippines about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, and we had the best night out. It was fantastic. Those guys are awesome. And it was really great? I felt like a visiting dictator or something. Like the guys they knew somebody in the government, and I didn't even need to go through customs. They had a car waiting for me as I come off the plane, and I got driven out the site. The site, it was amazing. Those guys are awesome.
You're living the life,
It
man.
spoiled me for everyone else after that.
You are living the life. All right, let's see here. We have a question from Alter Ego Lounge. Who has been your favorite artist that you've worked with? Or artists, plural.
Because you and I haven't yet worked together, I can say this,
Yeah, we actually, that was one of the things I was going to point out. You and I have never done a single page of artwork for you, ever. But
Isn't
thank
that
you.
crazy?
Yeah.
We must do it. But I would say, genuinely, I think you're one of the most exciting artists alive. I think you're you know what I mean? Because I would just say nothing if it wasn't true. but I love your stuff. But in terms of the guys I've actually worked with, I would say maybe Olivier Coipel. Olivier Coipel is something else, isn't he? He's so good. But I'm so spoiled. I mean, my God, Frank Quitely, like Brian Hitch, I mean, everybody's amazing, But I like Coipel is special.
You've worked with a handful of artists that are, they're artists that are commercial, and then there are artists that are considered artists, right? That other artists look at and go, wow. And sometimes they're not the most commercial guys and gals, right? And then there's artists that really do that crossover thing where they are incredibly commercial and also an artist. Coipel always bubbles to the top of the list. Frank Quitely always bubbles to the top of the list. Brian Hitch. I mean, you worked with some incredible legends, people that 20, 30 years from now, other young artists could be looking at their stuff and going, whoa, how'd they do that? You know what I mean? I look at your work, and I know you know this, that how fortunate you were and lucky to work with some of these amazing talents. Let's see if we got anything. And by the way, thank you. What was that?
There's no doubt a good artist can elevate the worst script, and it's like these guys just make it look amazing.
Well, it's also, it's also the fun part that it's easy for you to write, especially for Hitchy, right? You write like, 1,000 aliens, come charging up the hill. That's all you do, and then it takes Hitchy a week to draw that. Yeah. All right, let's see if we got another one here. Okay, the phrasing is a little odd here, Mark, but I think you'll understand. Emilio Cabrera, what advice do you have for the young? Now, you can take that, in general, or stay in school, or in let's talk about as a writer, as a creator. What advice, what sort of top level advice do you have for young creators, writers? Let's say writers, because I tend to talk a lot about artists. But what do you recommend? What do you suggest? What kind of advice do you have?
I think waste your 20s, and I'm totally serious. Like, just have fun in your 20s. Don't worry about it. Like, keep your hand in, keep doing stuff, practice. But I think most people, they just get enough time behind them by their late 20s that they've got something to say. And I think the mistake I made, that I was 19 when I started, and I had kind of nothing to say, because I had a couple of things to say, but not that much.
Right.
But by about 29, I felt I had a bit of life experience, and I could bring something to the table that wasn't just a rehash of an old comic that I'd read, Like a little bit of life experience goes a long way when you're a writer. So I think, and this is the best advice, I say this in schools, and you can see the teacher looking at me like, shut up, which is like, don't worry about anything. Just enjoy your 20s, have a good time, and get lots of nights out, get lots of good stories, build up your own personality, and then you know who you are by the time you're writing these stories, by the time you're 28, 29, 30. And I think you're never too late. If this happens at 40 or 50, all the better, because you've got even more life experience behind you that you can then bring to the table. So I would say don't sweat it. Like people are always in a rush and always panicking and everything, thinking, oh my God. I remember when I was 22 thinking, I'm not writing X-Men yet.
Yeah.
I should be doing X-Men now, And just enjoy it. Enjoy the conventions, meet people. And this is the huge one, like to actually be quite likable as well, like be somebody who, when editors see you at a convention, they think, I love that guy, as opposed to some pest who's got like 10 manuscripts. I remember I used to bring those manuscripts to conventions and hand them over, and just hang out in the bar, just get to know everyone, follow it up later with some proposals, just enjoy it,
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned 29, because right around 29, 30 is when I broke in as well, and I had so much life experience. working all sorts of odd jobs and struggling. I was a musician for a very long time. And then, somewhere around the age of 25, I rediscovered comic books. You know this story.
Yeah.
And somewhere in there, I decided, I think I might want to do this for a living. So I just absorbed everything. I really didn't go backwards, right, to pick up stuff that I missed out in the 70s and like the 80s and 90s. I started looking forward, and I started reading everything that came out from every publisher. I spent my entire paycheck on comics every week. And as I started reading stuff, I would weed out, like, okay, this is not very good. This is not stuff that I like, but this is the stuff I like. And I had a pile of the stuff that I liked, and certain writers always bubbled up to the top there. Certain artists always bubbled up to the top, and not necessarily always the most commercial people either. But it set in my head exactly the kind of comics that I wanted to do. And then right around 29, I started working at Valiant as a colorist, and then when I was able to get my shot at comics, I think it was 30. It was somewhere between 29 and 30. All that life experience came into play. It came into play when I met with an editor, when I talked to editors, when I talked to other creators. I was mature, right? I wasn't a snot-nosed 20-year-old punk, which is what I was in my 20s, and that was really, really beneficial to me. So I kind of jumped in late. I mean, I know you started a little bit earlier than me, but the sweet spot, right? I mean, Stan was like 40 when he created the bulk of the Marvel Universe. Jack was in their 40s. So it's not like rock and roll, right? Where the sweet spot is, 17, 18, 19, 20. We have all that angst to get out in your music. Comics is a little bit different. We're ageless, we're faceless, and it's just a matter of what you have to say. And sometimes when you try to say it all in your 20s, you run out of stuff to say because you really haven't experienced any life to bring into that work. I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule. There's probably a lot of exceptions to the rule, but that's one of the things that I found. Mark, I know you have to go soon, so let me know. We're running on the witching hour. We're about 4 minutes from your exit time here. But dude,
I'm good until my kids burst in the door. So I mean, until they come in the room, I'm good.
Okay.
Like I promised them, like everybody else, we're in this lockdown situation just now, and we're only allowed to do one walk a day. So I promised the kids we would do this one walk with them at some point. But I'm good until they come in. Do you not think it's weird? We seem to be living in some sci-fi thing where like 6 months ago we were all like, let's go to Disneyland, and now we're like, we get one walk a day. Life has changed so much.
I got to tell you, Mark, I look out the window of my apartment. And last night, the streets were barren. Not a car, not a soul, not a sound. There was a slight breeze. And there's almost a point where I'm sitting there going, I feel like this is a dream. I can't believe this is actually happening. It's just bizarre. It really is bizarre. Daytime is a little bit different. There are people out walking their dogs. There are people, that are trying to get a little bit of exercise. Everybody's keeping their distance. And as much as I get angry at New York City for how crowded it is and how much of a struggle it is sometimes, it's actually, the population has increased here a lot more since even the heyday. So it's really you're bumping into people all day long. As frustrated and angry as I get about that stuff, I miss it. I miss my city. I miss the idea that there's tons of people on the streets and I can still imagine Spider-Man swinging through the city. I can't imagine Spider-Man swinging through the city right now because there's nothing to do. There really isn't anything to do. Let's see. We got a few more questions here. Let's see.
One of my aunts.
Yeah.
Do you get? I don't know if you're Skyping everyone just now, but we're Skyping around all our friends and family. And we're having Skype dinner parties, And one of my aunts, who's 76. She said to me, you know what would be a good thing to do right now? And I was like, what? She says, rob a bank. It'd be really easy to rob a bank right now. There's nobody. I thought, you're a 76-year-old woman. Why are you thinking about potential benefits of the coronavirus?
Yeah. Unreal, man. It's I said it's a little freaky, but it's also heartwarming to see how seriously most of New York takes it. Like people just say stay in, and they've stayed in. People have stayed in. So let's see. This is a great question, actually. Hold on. Let's get rid of this one here. David Da Silva. What was the Marvel comic you found most difficult to write? I think I know the answer to this one.
Civil War, without a doubt. Civil War was nightmarish to write. I mean, I'm so pleased. I mean, it sold so well and everything, and people really loved it. But like, I think I got a little taste of what life must be like for the editors. Because you're dealing with more people than yourself. One of the nice things about being a writer is you just sit at your computer and write a story, don't you? But you're actually dealing with 40 other writers and all the other creative teams and everything. It was, I mean, the technical side of it was very, very difficult. That was hard, But I would say, to balance that, I would say it's the book that is brought to me more than any other book when I do a signing. Anywhere in the world I go, anywhere I go, the number one book is Civil War that people bring. So I think it was like having a baby. It was tough, but I'm glad it was out there.
Yep. And you know what's really funny? Well, not really funny, but because you and I talked about this a lot, right? We talk a lot about career management. We have a lot. Sorry, this is adjusting my pillow here so I don't slide down the chair and look slumpy, or more slumpy than I do. We talk a lot about what's the best route for creators to take and how to do certain things and manage your career, manage your brand. And I feel the same way as you do. I think it's great to do the work for hire stuff, but still dabble in the creator-owned stuff, right? Because the creator-owned stuff is stuff that you can eventually, these are things that your kids and your kids will benefit from, right? The IP, but there's something also about using, the bigger brands, right? Marvel, the DCs, and those bigger characters to get yourself a name out there, right? It's sort of the Hollywood model, right? Where you have the big star who will do the big blockbuster, big money making movie, and that allows them to go do sort of their more intimate stuff or their stuff that's really that's owned by them. I think guys like Robert Redford are perfect examples of that, right? They'll go and they'll do something big time for money, and then they'll go and they'll do their own thing. And I think you're a perfect example of that model. I mean, what's your philosophy on that?
Well, there's a great book I recommend for anybody who wants to work in comics called Eisner Miller. Have you seen that book? It was brought out about maybe 15, 18 years ago.
Say it again.
And it's based...
What is it?
Eisner Miller, and it's Will Eisner and Frank Miller in
conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Like 150 pages of them just chatting. Mm-hmm. I think it was Charles Brownstein recorded these guys basically talk for like 2 days and then put it all into one book. And that's when I read that philosophy. Miller and Eisner both recommended it, even though Eisner didn't take that route. He did see the value in it as well, which is that basically you're just a guy in the middle of nowhere if you're trying to bring out your create your own series. That nobody's ever heard of you. And it's a very crowded market just now in particular, Whereas if you have your 80,000 Marvel readers or your 120,000 Marvel readers who've been buying you consistently for 5 years, then you say, here's something else I'm doing. Then you get those people to go along. And it's no coincidence that, Steve McNiven and I had a big hit with Nemesis, and, Johnny and I, after doing Wolverine, went off and did Kick-Ass. These sold a lot of books based on our Marvel numbers, really. Retailers had a broad idea of what to order based on what they ordered with their Marvel work. So I think it's a great plan. I mean, the trick is to balance it, and also create your own isn't always as lucrative as people think too, I mean, it's nice to own your own IP, but it's a very crowded create your own market, I'd say, for the last 6 or 7 years, And I think if, from a day-to-day living point of view, there's a nice steady paycheck to doing Marvel or DC work as well as building your reputation. And maybe right now do the create your own stuff a little bit on the side.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I agree with you 100%. And even if, pardon me, even if you only bring a portion of that audience that you've made, with a bigger publisher, that's still probably better than most creator-owned books are doing. if you happen to be a popular creator like yourself. But I always say it's like when people go to the stores and when our stores reopen, their creator-owned is not a genre, right? So your creator-owned book is on the stands right next to Batman, right next to Spider-Man, right next to X-Men. So what really is going to bring eyeballs to your book is your name, your brand, because if you're John or Jane Q. Public walking into a shop and you know nothing about comic books, right? You might recognize Spider-Man, but for all they know, Kick-Ass was published by one of the bigger publishers. So hopefully your retailer will say, hey, if this guy Mark Millar, he did some great work here, you should check this out. But yeah, I think it's a really, really healthy way to do it. Not saying that just going straight creator-owned isn't right, or just doing work for hire isn't right. But there's always different plans, and I like to talk about different ways that creators hit different parts of the sort of the comics genre and try to boost their wares and sell their wares, etc. Hang on a second. Let's see.
You guys did the most awesome thing. I don't know if you remember this, but 30 years ago, whenever Image started, they had the books they had been doing at Marvel. They essentially have almost carried over into the Image itself. And even Spawn, like Todd was doing Spider-Man, and it starts with the letters SP, and so does Spawn. So it's sitting right beside Spider-Man on the shelf. Yep. Jim and Rob had been doing X-Men, so Wildcats and Youngblood are sitting beside X-Men, you know? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a very, very clever move, you know? I mean, it's not to everybody's taste, you know, to do Marvel or DC, you know, but I think most people deep in our hearts love that stuff because we grew up with it, and it's really fun to play with that as well as it's fun to create your own stuff too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, here's a great question from Anne Murray. What's the piece you're most proud of, and what do you wish you can go back and do again?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, do you know what? I never look back, strangely enough. You know, I rarely go back and read my own stuff. Do you do that? Do you ever look back?
I always tell people I never look back. I mean, sometimes people will say, hey, remember that story about... yeah, maybe. Yeah. But I don't like to look back because, first of all, the stuff I created was created at a different time, different age, different headspace, and it probably won't read right to me. And I'll just like, well, you know, I like to look forward at the next thing, and especially when I was editor in chief, right? You can't look back. You just can't because I call it, publishing is like a giant Sisyphus stone, right? It's like every week you roll that stone to the top of the hill, and you're like, whew, I'm done, and then it rolls back down, and you got to start over. I mean, I think of the grind of publishing comics, because you know people say monthly comics, but really it's weekly, right? They come out every week, and it is a constant churn. And it is a constant churn that, Mark, after you and I are long gone, will continue, where they're constantly putting out new comics, right? So creatively, it's very high level because you have to constantly rethink things, redo things, come up with new ideas, rebrand different ideas. So yeah, I never look back. I really, really try to avoid looking back. You know, every once in a while I reminisce about our time together or Marvel Nights back in 1998, but that's just, you know, history. But creatively, nah, can't go there, man. So
you know, I think you look at an old story, or you probably have the same with artwork, and you think, I wish I'd come in from a different angle on that or something, or I wish I'd made that panel a wide panel or something, you know. And that's what I feel like with a story too. And it's funny, I talk to actors, and so many actors I know can't look at themselves on screen for the exact same reason. They say, I can only see myself doing it wrong. And I thought it was a vanity thing. I thought they maybe didn't like the way they looked on screen. And they said, no, I can only see how I could do it better. You know?
I'll tell a funny story. I hope I'm not telling anything out of school and she doesn't get upset at me. But Deborah Ann Wall, who played Karen Page on Daredevil. I remember the very first time we were at a Daredevil premiere, and you know, so she comes on stage. They introduce the cast. Deborah says hi, and then it starts, right? And somewhere in the middle, I got to go to the bathroom. I've seen the episodes already, so I go out to the bathroom, and there's Deb, and she's in the lobby, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Oh no, I'm fine." I'm like, you didn't want to see it? She's like, no, I never watched myself. I have never, ever seen myself. I'm like, wow. And every time I see her at a premiere, that's something that she's doing. She just doesn't watch. And I think it's because, you know, she was saying she doesn't want to get self-conscious. I'm paraphrasing. I'm sorry, Deb, if I'm getting it wrong. But I think it's about seeing herself on screen might make her self-conscious the next time she's performing. You know, everybody's got their own thing, you know, but I find that really, really fascinating. So back to the question, though. What's the piece you're most proud of, and what do you wish you could go back and do again?
I think there's a book I did that not a lot of people saw when I was at Marvel, and it was called Marvel 1985. I did with Tommy Lee Edwards. Yeah. And I really loved that book. It just worked, you know? Yeah. And that's one of the few books I did reread. I reread it about 3 or 4 years ago. I thought, that's really good. It's like a really good little book. And I love Tommy Lee's art. I mean, his art is so beautiful. It's amazing. And
he's ridiculously talented. Ridiculously talented.
And I think, you know, I'm happy generally with most things I do, because I rewrite it so much before I send it in. I spend about 2 weeks on a comic. I spend a lot longer than most people. I'll do about 14, 15 days on an issue. So I never do more than about 19 a year. But I was pleased with that one. I think it worked out well. What I would do again? Do you know? I don't know. That sounds so arrogant, you know. But like, I actually can't. I think I would see it as such a pointless exercise, you know, like going back. It's a bit like, you know, that fantasy people have of, I'd love to kind of be back in grade school again or something like that, you know. But the reality is, you would find it so tedious. it'd just be so dull. So I think I can only think about the excitement of tomorrow morning and getting back on with the Jupiter's Legacy sequel. I love switching on the computer, doing this stuff.
So Mark, I know you may not have to go, but I've got to go soon too. So I want to close out on. It's time. It is time. So anything we can look forward to comic wise? Anything coming out?
Well, it's funny actually, because the way I tend to work is I'll have about 2 or 3 years worth of comics out, and then you don't see me for about a year, and then you see my new stuff. And weirdly, this strange time just now is the time that I'm off. So I'm working like crazy. I'm sitting watching all the shows and sitting in edits and things, but at the same time writing all my comics as well. So I just finished in terms of publishing. American Jesus just came out. In fact, it's out next week. It's out next week. The collection of it. From Image, and I think Chrononauts 2. Sean Murphy and I did a series called Chrononauts back in 2013, and this is the sequel I did with Eric Canetti, who's phenomenal. I've been a fan of Eric for 15 years, so getting him was great. So those are my 2 books. Then there's
Oh no, the timing was perfect. Did we lose him? We lost him. Darn it. All right. Well, you know what? We're running low on time, guys. So probably harder to get a hold of Mark right now. Let's go back here. So sorry about that. Sorry, Mark. I know you're out there somewhere. My apologies. We lost you, but we were kind of almost done. Mark, if you can hear me, thank you. Love to your family. I love you, brother. And I'll talk to you again. You guys, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for sticking around for a little catch up with me and Mark. It's been I always love talking to him, even though I didn't understand half of what he was talking about. Hopefully you guys did. So that's it for today, man. I'm gonna be back next week. Not quite sure exactly what day, but hang on. Where's the teaser? I got a teaser here. Let's see. Where's my teaser? Hold on. Bear with me. There we go. There's our next issue. Let me see if I get this right. Is it this hand? Yeah, this hand. All right. So next week, this young punk will be on. Can you guys guess who this is? All right, I'm gonna leave you hanging. If you can guess who this is, then you know. I'm not quite sure what day he wants to be on or can be on. I can pretty much assure you it won't be in the morning. He's not a morning person. Someday we will get the morning warm-up started in the morning. I promise you it will happen. In the meantime, hey, we will be continued. I don't know if that's a great cliffhanger or not. Yeah, guess the guest. Guess what day we'll be on. Maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday, but we'll be on. I promise you. We'll promise you we'll be on, and we'll do some fun stuff, and we'll try to get that art tutorial in. So hey guys, thank you. Love you all. I will see you in the funny books.